I'm Sarai.
And I'm Haley.
And this is Seamwork Radio. Welcome back to Seamwork Radio, where we share practical ideas for building a creative process so you can sew with intention and joy. So today we're getting into something that I think every single sewist can relate to. Those garments you made, maybe you were really proud of them at the time, but then they just live in your closet now and they don't get worn. So we're going to talk about those unworn makes and what they can actually teach you about your fit preferences, your style, your lifestyle, and your sewing choices. And the real key here is curiosity, not guilt. So we're not here to feel bad about anything. We're here to get really useful information from those pieces so that the next thing you sew is something that you can't wait to put on. We're going to share some of our own unworn makes, what we learned from them, and give you some practical processes for mining your closet for insights. All right, Haley, here's our icebreaker for today. Tell me about a time when your taste completely surprised you. Like you were absolutely sure you loved something, like a color or a silhouette or a print or whatever, and then you realized that you just didn't.
Okay, I have a good one for this. So I really like the color, like a cobalt blue color, and it repeatedly shows up on in my Pinterest boards and my mood boards for design your wardrobe. And there have been multiple occasions where I sew something up in that particular color and I just always feel weird. I think maybe it's not like my best color.
I feel like it would look really good on you.
Maybe. I don't know. I feel kind of weird in it, though. I don't know.
Well, if you feel weird in it, you feel weird in it.
I feel weird in it. I feel like and it could be that I'm not reaching for quite the right shade. A lot of the times I've reached historically for a very vibrant one. Anyway, I can tolerate it fine if it is part of a print. I have a gingham dress that's like a taupe and cobalt gingham. Very pretty. If it's like a floral print, fine. I've learned from experience I shouldn't make a pair of Joss pants in that color because I feel like my ankles look a little like they were pulled from a crypt. I think I'm very pale. I think it reflects weirdly onto my paleness.
I could see, I mean, not on you specifically, but I could see if you have pale skin that might happen.
It picks up that color and suddenly I'm I have very strong Smurf undertones.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. I just painted a room in my house a light blue. And I noticed immediately that the white walls in the adjoining room look blue now. So I could see that happening.
Blue really reflects pretty strongly. Anyway, I wish I could say that I learned my lesson the first time. I did not. I have made multiple, every other year I make this mistake and I'm determined to not make it ever again. So that's the one where I'm somehow always surprised by it.
Yeah.
Time and time again.
You want so badly for it to work.
Yeah, and maybe I'll find the magical blue that's just right. That fits my vision and my complexion. No luck yet. What about you?
Well, I think for me, I mentioned this in a previous episode. I was talking about how when I started sewing, I was sewing a lot of vintage styles, and I had a lot of patterns from the 1950s that I would make. And what I realized over time is that even though I really like that style generally, and I thought it was really pretty, it stopped feeling like me after a time. And I don't know if that's because I changed or I just realized something about, what made me comfortable or what it was. But at some point, it just shifted for me. And I realized that that's not really a style that feels like me for whatever reason. It just doesn't feel like me. So I think it's really interesting to note those kinds of evolutions in your style and how they do or don't reflect what's going on in your life or in your emotional landscape or whatever. So that's one that I have experienced over time.
Yeah, I've definitely come up against similar realizations before as well.
Yeah. Sometimes you just really like something. Both of our stories, so you just really like something and you want it to work, but for whatever reason, it doesn't work. And sometimes you just have to accept that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times it comes down to not finding that sweet spot yet, finding the way where you can mesh the inspiration with the real life?
Mm-hmm.
And where is that happy medium?
Yeah. All right. Well, if you have an icebreaker for us for a future episode, you can leave a question for us in a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and we'll answer it in a future episode. You can also leave a comment on Spotify if you'd like, and we read all of those comments. We read all of your reviews. They're super helpful. All the new ratings we've gotten on there have been really, really great for other people to discover the podcast. So we really, really appreciate all of you who have taken a moment to do that and given us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. All right, so here's what I wanted to talk about today. I think most of us, if we're honest, have at least a few handmade garments that we just don't wear. Some of us have quite a few. And there's this instinct to feel guilty about that. Like you wasted fabric or you wasted time or you should have known better, especially because sewing takes real effort. You pick the pattern, you chose the fabric, you spend hours cutting and pressing and stitching, and then the finished garment just hangs there. So here's the reframe I want to offer if you're feeling kind of guilty about those things. Those unworn makes are actually some of the most valuable things in your closet, not because of the garment itself, but because of what it can tell you. Every unworn make is holding information. So it's about what fits your body comfortably. It's information about what matches your actual life, about how your style has shifted, about the gap between what you imagine and what you actually reach for on a Tuesday morning. So, for example, I made this really pretty tiered dress with our Benning pattern. It was in this really beautiful cornflower blue seersucker fabric. And I loved the color, I loved the shape, but something about the way the fabric stood out from my body made it feel just kind of boxy and not really me. And when I finally sat with that realization, instead of just shoving the garment to the back of the closet, it changed how I planned my next few projects. And the next time I made that pattern, which I did, I used a really flowy sheer fabric. It was actually also a seersucker, but it was very, very lightweight and sheer and drapey. And I absolutely love it. I wore it to Stitch Fest last year, not this past year, but the year before. And I love that dress. I think it's so beautiful. And I think a lot of us skip that step. We finish something, we don't wear it, and we just move on to the next project without really asking why. But if you take even a little bit of time to get curious, you start to see patterns. And those patterns are what help you build a wardrobe that you genuinely love. So, Haley, do you find it easy or do you find it hard to be honest with yourself about why you don't wear something you've made?
I think I find it very easy. I think that my background, my education and my background in design, it has helped me to be very objective when I'm looking at the reasons why something does or does not work. And it probably took a little bit more practice for me to feel that way about things I make for myself. But I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like it's kind of like a practice, right?
Yeah.
And that takes, like you said, sitting with it and reflecting on it, and looking at the elements, kind of like breaking it down and looking at all the elements that make it something that doesn't quite work. And when we can look at all of the pieces in that way, I think it can eliminate a lot of the guilt and self-judgment that we have with ourselves. But yeah, so the short answer is yes, but it took me some time and practice to get there. What about you?
I feel like for me, so I just did a big closet clean out and got rid of some things, and other things I just kind of put away for the time being, things I couldn't bear to part with. And I feel like there are a lot of emotions around things that you've made, and I do feel sometimes kind of like disappointed if I make something that when I find something in my closet, obviously I feel disappointed if I make something that doesn't turn out the way I want.
Yeah, of course.
If I find something in my closet that I've made and I just never wear, and it's just, I realize it's just not me for this reason or that reason, it does feel disappointing. It feels kind of like what a waste. But I think over time, I've really gotten more comfortable with the idea of like, oh, okay, well, what can I take from that so that the next one I make will be more to my liking. Because it's kind of like the bending that I just talked about, where it doesn't have to be the end of the story, but
Yeah.
maybe that's just the first iteration. And you can try again, maybe in a totally different style, maybe a different shape, maybe a
Mhm.
different fabric. But if you look at it that way, it's just kind of like one iteration of, you know, something that you're trying out. I think it's much healthier and
Yeah.
much more of a learning experience.
Yeah, I agree. Have you ever had like a moment where you realized like a whole category or like group or type of garment wasn't working for you anymore, like a particular style of dress or cut of pant or something like that?
Yeah, I feel like in the last year, so I mentioned like vintage styles before, and I think there's a little bit of an extension of that, but I've noticed in the last few years I've kind of come to terms with the fact that even though I really like a lot of volume in clothing, like on other people, and when I
Mhm.
see it and I like it in general, I don't feel great in it myself.
Mhm.
Um, some volume, like on top, is okay, like a voluminous top with like jeans or whatever. I do like that, but like a dress that I'm just feel like I'm swimming in,
Mhm.
or a big old circle skirt or something like that.
Mhm.
It just makes me feel really overwhelmed by fabric,
Yeah.
and like the clothes are wearing me instead of the other way around. Um, and I just feel not like myself in them. And so even it's sometimes difficult to separate, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but separate out what you like from what you feel good in. And I think that's
Mhm.
one of the realizations that I've come to in the last, couple of years. What about you?
Yeah, I the one that comes to mind is when I transitioned from a job where I was standing most of the day to a job where I was sitting most of the day. I found that I owned a ton of things that had very little waist ease, like 0 to like max 1.5 inches. And that is that's was for me at the time comfortable wearing ease for a standing situation, not comfortable wearing ease for sitting down for 8 hours out of the day.
Yeah.
And that was challenging more because I thought I looked good in it. I
Mhm.
liked the way it looked, and it did not meet the needs I had anymore.
Yeah.
And it was like a very I felt like it was a really big part of like or like thing that I relied on when I was getting dressed was
Mhm.
like I had this like, oh, I gotta like I think I was like it was really trained into me as a short, curvy person that I had to define my waist.
Yeah.
You must define the waist. And I had to like unlearn that and get used to seeing myself in different silhouettes.
Mhm.
And it made me kind of sad. I think that was like a hard thing to part with because it wasn't that it was something that I didn't like. It was just something that didn't work for my lifestyle anymore. Um, but I think that it was in the end freed me in a lot of ways
Mhm.
from like, I think it freed me from the need to be flattered by
Mhm.
everything that I
Yeah.
wore. Um, don't get me wrong. There's a there. I'm not saying I don't like putting on things that feel flattering,
Mhm.
but I won't stop it from letting me look cool,
Yeah.
right?
Or just feeling good. Like
And from
just
feeling good, like, the least interesting thing about me is my body
yeah.
and my waist.
Mhm.
Um, and I feel like like really opened up a lot of possibilities for creativity in my wardrobe. So ultimately it ended up being like a cool, great thing and a learning lesson in itself.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, well, let's get into some of the practical ways to actually do this, how to look at your unworn makes and pull out real useful insights for your future sewing. So I'll start with tip one, which is to pull everything out and then sort it without judgment. So let me talk a little bit about the steps here. It's a really simple first step, but it matters a lot. So you want to go to your closet or wherever your handmade garments live and pull them all out, every single one. So Marie Kondo style. You don't have to do every garment that you own if you don't want to. You can just do your handmade garments. That's what I would do because I'm trying to learn from this. And personally, I'm trying to learn what I can actually make that's going to work, not necessarily about shopping. So that's what works for me. But if you wanted to do every garment, you could do that too. And then once you've done that, sort them into 3 groups: wear often, wear sometimes, and never wear. And the key here is really no stories and no justification. So don't think about how much the fabric cost or how long it took. Just be honest about whether it gets worn. And just think of it like a detective looking at evidence. You're just collecting data right now. And when I did this, there were so many surprises. I realized that a lot of the clothes I made and actually really loved were in the never wear pile. And what it made me realize is that I have kind of 2 sections in my wardrobe. I have my everyday clothes, and then I have my dress up clothes. And that realization itself was really helpful. But I also realized that I spend a lot, a lot of time making those dress up clothes that I actually don't wear that often. So I even sorted my closet into 2 separate sections. So I put my everyday clothes on one side and the more dress up clothes that I don't wear day to day on the other side. And there's kind of a lot on that side for someone who really does not get dressed up that often. So that in itself was really, really interesting. So I think this shows you that just because something is in the never wear pile doesn't mean like you'll never get any use out of it, or you should get rid of it or never make anything like that. But it's just good information to have. And you might notice patterns like this in your own wardrobe that are helpful to you.
Yeah. And it's all like really useful for all of these next steps that we're going to propose to you. So the next thing we want to look at is we're going to look for fabric clues. So once you have your never wear pile and your sometimes wear pile, we're going to get curious about the fabric in those piles. So pick up each garment and like I want you to like really, really feel it. Is it scratchy, or maybe it feels too heavy for your climate, too stiff, too drapey? Or maybe it like wrinkles in a way that like really drives you nuts every time you wear it. Fabric, I find, is one of the most common reasons that a garment never gets worn. I think it's often something that we overlook because we fall in love with how a fabric looks on the bolt, rather than how it behaves and how it feels on the body. I found that after I had kids, I rarely was reaching for things in my closet that were like fussier to care for, that I needed to hand wash or that needed to be dry cleaned. I had like a bunch of silk tops that I loved, but like I was just like not willing to deal with getting a stain on it and trying to deal with laundering it. So I loved the look and the feel, but it didn't suit my lifestyle needs anymore. And this was really useful information for me as well, so that I could adjust my future sewing plans once I realized the pattern. So sometimes it might be a practical thing like that as well, not just that you don't like the feel of it or it behaves in a way that doesn't work for you.
Yeah. This, for some reason, what this brought to mind is yesterday I was in my living room and I was looking. We have a white sofa. I bought a white sofa because I love the way a white sofa looks, and you can put, any color pillow on it or whatever, put my quilts on it. But I bought it before we had dogs and didn't know we were getting dogs. And I was looking at it yesterday, and like the corner of the sofa is like brownish tinted. So I need to clean it, first of all. But second of all, like I think it just shows like sometimes you can love something and then over time you're like, okay, well, if I'm making that decision again the next time, here's something new to take into account because my circumstances have changed.
Yeah, totally.
All right. The next tip is to check the fit factor. So the next step is to try things on if you can and pay attention to how they feel and not just how they look. So sometimes a garment looks fine in the mirror, but it feels wrong. Maybe it pulls across the shoulders, or the waistband hits in an uncomfortable spot, or the armhole is just slightly too tight and you're tugging at it all day. And these tiny discomforts are actually huge because when something is even a little bit uncomfortable, you unconsciously skip over it when you're getting dressed. So just note the specific fit issues that you come across. Is it the same across multiple garments? Because that's incredibly useful information for your next project. It's like how a tiny pebble in your shoe will make you stop wanting to walk, even if the shoes are beautiful. Fit discomfort doesn't have to be dramatic to make you avoid a garment entirely. So when I was first learning to sew, it took me a while before I noticed that every dress with a really, like a fitted waistline, it just seemed to kind of like ride up on me. And eventually I realized that it's because I have a short torso and I simply needed to shorten all my bodices. And just noticing those patterns over time is what really helped me to identify some of those common fit changes that I needed to make.
Yeah, totally. I think that's an often overlooked thing in fitting where people think they need to like learn all of the adjustments and you just like in actuality, like your body is like, shaped the way it's shaped and you likely only need to learn 4 or 5 things to get the fit right for you.
Yeah. And then apply maybe one of them on a pattern.
Totally. All right. Our next tip is to consider your lifestyle alignment. We've kind of like touched on this throughout this episode. I think that this one is huge. And I think that it's like the sneakiest reason that garments go unworn. You sew something that's like objectively lovely. It's a great fabric. The fit is great, but it just like doesn't match your actual daily life. For instance, maybe you made like a structured blazer, but you work from home, and maybe you made like a delicate silk blouse, but you have a toddler. You're like me. You're not living a silk blouse life right now. Or maybe you made like a cocktail dress, but you only go out to dinner like once or twice a year.
That's me.
Yeah, same. I don't think there's anything wrong with sewing an aspirational garment. It's fun to make beautiful things. I think we can learn a lot in the process of making those things. But if most of your unworn makes are in this category, it's telling you something important about the gap between your wardrobe, that you're like the wardrobe that you're imagining and then the wardrobe that you're actually living in. And also your style evolves and your body changes and your life is going to shift over time. And garments that you made 2 years ago may not reflect the person that you are now. And that's normal. And that's good, probably. Because that just means you're growing and you're changing.
Yeah.
The key is to see it as evolution and acknowledge it as part of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And a healthy part of life, too.
Yeah.
The next tip is to notice the orphan garment problem. And this is one that comes up a lot in Design Your Wardrobe. You make something and it's really great on its own, but then it doesn't go with anything else in your closet. Like a beautiful printed skirt with no tops that work with it, or a statement jacket that clashes with everything you own, or a gorgeous color like cobalt blue that doesn't really fit your palette. So when a garment doesn't play well with others, that's when it doesn't get worn, and it really is that simple. So this is actually one of the strongest arguments for planning out your sewing, even if you just do it loosely. And when you think about your wardrobe as a system instead of a collection of individual projects, you end up making fewer orphans. So I'll just give a quick example. I have this really gorgeous, gorgeous vintage coat in my closet that I seriously never wear, even though I really, really love it. It's this kind of gray sort of tapestry fabric with orangey leaves all over it. And I think it's so beautiful. But first of all, I hardly ever wear gray. I do have a couple gray things, but it's not a color I wear a ton. And I just have a hard time pairing the coat with the rest of what I own because it doesn't match my palette. It also feels very seasonal to me. It like only feels like a couple months out of the year. It feels like the right thing to wear. So that has been like a good lesson for me. And thinking about not just, do I love this thing? Is it beautiful? But also, how can I integrate it into the rest of my wardrobe?
Yeah, I have definitely had things that I love in theory. But there's, it's the cobalt blue thing. This is going to be like my new code word for something that I love in theory, but not in practice. It's a real cobalt situation.
Yeah.
All right. So our final step is to turn all of these insights into a kind of like a sewing decision filter, if you will. So you've done all of this detective work. You've looked at the fabric and fit and lifestyle and wardrobe cohesion. And you probably at this point are able to notice some really clear patterns. The last step is to take those patterns and then turn them into a simple set of questions you can ask yourself before you start your next project. So something like, does this fabric match what I know I'm comfortable in? Does this silhouette fit into my actual daily life? Does this garment work for at least, or with like at least 3 other things that I own? Or maybe am I choosing this because I love it? Or because I saw it on Instagram? Valid question. You don't need to have 20 questions, even like a few of these that are really specific to you and the patterns that you noticed will save you so much time and lead the way to more garments that you actually love. So think of it kind of like as a personal little checklist that helps you to make intentional decisions before you cut into fabric. The purpose is not to limit your creativity, but to channel it towards things that you'll actually wear and enjoy. Sari, what would be your personal filter? What's a question that you learned you should always ask yourself before starting a project?
Okay, so I would say I have maybe like 2 sets of projects, just like I mentioned, kind of like having 2 parts of my wardrobe. So if it's kind of like a fancy project, like for going out or for a special occasion or going to a wedding or something like that, that might have a different set of filters to it. But for my everyday projects, which is what I'm really focused on, my biggest question that I ask myself is, will I be comfortable in this day to day? Because I know for me personally, if it doesn't feel like really comfortable, like very, very comfortable to put on, I know that I'm not going to wear it. And comfort can encompass a lot of things for me. It's, will it keep me warm if it's going to be worn in the cooler months? Is it going to be comfortable to move around in, to sit in when I'm working? Is it something I'm going to reach for, day to day, just every day? And for me, like, I just know that if it's not super comfy, it's not going to get worn. So that's my biggest filter. What about you?
Yeah. The comfort one is definitely a big one. I also I'm not super married to this one, but I do like to think about the rule of 3 outfits. Can I make 3 outfits from this?
Yeah.
I think that really helps me to filter out any of those orphaned garments. Another thing that I kind of similar question is, can I wear this in at least 2 life contexts? Like my most common life contexts are working from home, working in the office, being with my kids on the weekend. I go on like 5 date nights a year. So
Yeah.
that's a low priority context. So I really like to be able to make sure that I have limited time to sew. I want to make sure that the things I'm sewing fit into at least 2 of those contexts. So I think that when I consider comfort, launderability, how many ways I can wear this, and how many contexts can I wear it, those 4 questions combined really point me in the right direction most of the time.
Yeah, that's a really good set of questions, I think. And hopefully that helps some of you to kind of think about what your own questions might be, because I think they're different for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, let's bring it all together. So today we talked about how your unworn makes aren't something to feel guilty about. They're actually a goldmine of information about your preferences, your life, and your growth as a sewist. We covered looking at your fabric choices, your fit comfort, whether garments match your lifestyle, the orphan garment problem, and building a personal decision filter for your future projects. So I really think that like my biggest takeaway from this is that I think it really, for me, what's really helped is that realization I mentioned earlier of like having everyday clothes and fancy clothes, because I think in the past I really conflated the two
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted everything to be special and fancy. And I think that was kind of holding me back from making things that I actually wanted to wear day to day. And I
Mm-hmm.
think just talking about it today has helped me to kind of even solidify that idea more and kind of think about that even a little bit more deeply and how I could maybe set some new filters and constraints for myself to make sure that what I'm wearing is something that will get tons of wear, because that's what I really want. I want clothes that get not just worn once in a while, but
Mm-hmm.
worn all the time. Um, I've realized recently I have a lot of clothes already.
Mm-hmm.
I make clothes because it's fun and I like evolving my wardrobe with handmade things,
Yeah.
not because I need more stuff. So I want to be very selective about what I add and make it something very useful.
Yeah. I was thinking something kind of similar as we were having this conversation about how a lot of times we talk about like quality over quantity. And when we talk about quality, we're talking about like the quality of the fabric and the quality of the construction and all of those things. And those are like great things to focus on.
Yeah.
But quality can also mean the value that it's adding
Uh-huh.
for you.
Yeah.
And something can be like the most beautiful technical quality, but if it has no value in your life,
Yeah.
then that that value is lost,
Mhm.
right? Um, so that was just a thought that I was having, and like you, I don't have a ton of time to sew. I don't, you know, I sew two or three things every season. Um, I want to make sure that I'm investing my time well, and having these kinds of filters helps me to do that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I hope it's inspired some of you guys too. Just even just thinking about this stuff, I think is really super, super helpful. If you're someone who's interested in like making things that are very wearable, which is kind of what this is all about. So, if you've been listening to this episode and you're thinking about fit, especially if fit discomfort came up as a reason that you're not wearing your makes, I want to tell you about a free resource we have called the Fitting Journal. And one of the things we talked about today is how the same fit issues tend to show up across multiple garments. And the Fitting Journal is designed to help you track exactly that. So you can use it to choose the right starting size, track your measurements over time. And I think this is the really powerful part. Note the specific adjustments you make on each project so you have a record of what works for your body. So instead of rediscovering the same fitting issue every time you start a new project, you have this go to reference that tells you exactly what changes to make. And it's completely free. You can grab it at seamwork.com and we'll put a link to it in the show notes as well. And if you like this episode, we would love it if you would leave us a review, those 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. Even if you don't want to leave a review, you can just leave a rating for us. And that really helps other people to find the show. So we really, really, really appreciate it. If you leave us a comment on Spotify, then we will read that as well. We love hearing from you guys. You can also follow us on YouTube at Seamwork Video. By the way, if you don't know this, we also broadcast the podcast episodes on YouTube. So if you prefer YouTube as a podcast platform, you can actually listen to it there. I think it's Seamwork Podcast is the name of the channel. Anyway, you can just search for it on YouTube and you'll find it. And it's just a feed of the podcast. There's no video to go with it, but that's something we might work on in the future. You can also follow us on Instagram at Seamwork. And if you'd like to become part of the Seamwork community, you can head over to seamwork.com to learn how to join us. And that's it for us this week. I'm Sarai.
And I'm Haley.
And this is Seamwork Radio.